tell you, I was looking for an Oktoberfest type theme here, Shrinktoberfest, for these guys. I kind of liked this one better.
Yeah, I like that one too.
I thought this one actually kind of played a little bit better. But
Look like counterfeit pictures.
Yeah, counterfeit pictures.
I don't see a security note in any of those pictures.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, we all have matching hats. That's great.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I took a picture of one of the hats that Jack usually wears, and I thought we'd use that. So I thought he was going to wear it today.
Oh, mine's not green though.
No, but I'll tell you, this is definitely a better look for you guys. So, all right, very good. So, Julie, Jake, Kathleen, welcome to the panel. And we're a couple minutes behind, so we can probably jump right into it. I'm going to stop sharing the screen here because I think we're going to just do a little open conversation. Right, there we go. Beautiful. All right, Jack, why don't you lead us off?
Okay. Do you want me to do introductions, Kevin, or we can jump right into
let's do some quick introductions with everybody. That'd be great.
Okay, first up, we have Jake Gillette. He's a regional asset protection manager with Meijer. He's been part of effective loss prevention teams in the areas of profit protection, omni-channel fraud, investigations, corporate security, operations, supply chain loss prevention, and crisis management. Next up, we have Julie Lawson. Julie is Senior Loss Prevention Manager for Systems and Transactions with ThinkLP. Julie spent time in the field as a loss prevention practitioner. She also she's been on the dark side of loss prevention for a few years now as a solution provider. Her former roles with Sally Beauty. Kathleen Garner is Strategic Customer Success Manager with Appriss Retail. She's 16 years. You've been with Appriss for 16 years now, Kathleen?
Okay. Do you have to repeat that?
Yeah, 16. Kathleen's been with Appriss for 16 years now, if anyone had a question about that. She also spent more than 20 years in the field as a practitioner. She was Director of Loss Prevention Administration, Training and Awareness. She was a Regional Loss Prevention Director and held other roles with Kmart and Sears. And that is our panel today.
And that's where I met Kathleen originally, many years ago. Kathleen and I we are bonded by a 9/11 story that we won't get into today, but Kathleen and I were on site in New York filming on 9/11 for Kmart, some training stuff. So we definitely go way back. And Julie, we go way back for like a year, I think. No, maybe 6 months. But how our paths have crossed and we just didn't make the connection until more recently. It's been so much fun getting to know you and meet you. And Jake, you are just an icon in the industry. So we appreciate your joining us and giving us your expertise as well. You've been around. I think we met when you were at Dick's Sporting Goods originally. But for the ladies here today, you know, and anybody listening going, but they're vendors, but they're not, right? These are industry experts that have had that store level experience and that now use that experience, leveraging it across multiple retailers to help them with their internal and external loss prevention controls and needs. So thought this would be a really cool panel to put together and to get the perspective, not only from past experience, but from current experience where you're leveraging that information and that expertise across the various people that you work with on a day-to-day basis. So welcome everybody. Appreciate your time here today. You know, so much of our time and attention is spent on external issues, and more specifically organized retail crime. In fact, a lot of the sessions that Jack and I do are very focused on ORC and what happens in ORC. But you know, do you feel that we focus too much on that? Do you feel, Jake, maybe I'll start with you. You know, do you feel like that's takes any focus away from internal theft? Because internal theft is obviously just as, and in many cases more important, right? I mean, these are people who have access to our back doors and our stock rooms and our merchandise that it's unsecured. behind the scenes. So what's your thought on that?
It's really interesting when you take a look back at when you started loss prevention or asset protection. You were always taught that your internals could hit you for way more than your externals because they know the inner workings of your business, right? But yet we don't talk a whole lot about internal, I think because there's not as much sexiness there. It's remained pretty much the same for a really long time, whereas ORC has really changed and adapted and really has become probably our single largest source of loss when you stack it up now against internal. So there's been a fundamental shift where it used to be your employees that hit you the hardest. At some point in all of our careers and years of experience, it shifted to organized retail crime because they have the wherewithal, the organization, obviously the motive to go after us and to take as much as they can. I think it's pretty balanced in what we cover. The here and now is definitely organized retail crime, but we can't forget, and we often talk about this at several of the steering committees that I'm a part of, we can't forget about internal theft because it's still there. And as we change our business, they're really going to apply some of the same concepts to the new areas that we've opened up within our business, and kind of same old tactics, but new place to do it, if you will, is probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, and it's timely, right, to have this discussion now because everybody's focused on seasonal hires. We're bringing in a very transient group of folks that are going to come in, a lot of them only for a short period of time. And truth be told, we know a lot of them are coming in specifically just so they can get on the inside. And whether that's to try to steal from the inside or whether to, work with people on the outside, we know those things happen, and they happen a lot. Kathleen, you've seen this a lot over the years in your experience. What are some of the steps that retailers should take to keep focused on internal issues that can take place?
Yeah, and I think I completely agree with what Jake is saying, right? I think that we can tend to lose focus on internal theft. And, the recent security survey that just came out, 65% of our loss is coming from within the building, right? So I think that we can't lose focus with that. And the associates are always going to have unparalleled access to the business, and they're the ones that are going to have the largest impact on profitability. So I think that it's really, really important that we stay focused on the internal piece, not ignoring the ORC piece or the external piece, but definitely staying focused on that piece and paying attention to inside the building for sure.
Excellent. Julie, what do you think about that? Anything to add?
Yeah, so I would echo a lot of the same things as far as ORC actually taking the focus away from internals. You've got so many more articles coming out in the Wall Street Journal talking about theft, and it's really shifted a lot of that focus. And I think Jake put it best, the sexiness is not on internals. And so unfortunately, sometimes if you don't know what you don't know, especially as we get into the holiday season and the more items that are in the store, I've seen retailers sometimes mistake internal theft for ORC because it wasn't seen or it wasn't reported. And so I know you had asked Kathleen a little bit about maybe some of the steps to keep focus on internal issues. And so I would say in that space, kind of, if it's possible, it's not always possible to justify that expense for that subject matter expert in the ORC space, then that's always kind of the first course, best course that we could take, but that's not always exactly possible. So, kind of secondary to that is really leveraging the technology that you have available to you and making it easy for your store associates to notify if they've kind of see something, say something, and building those relationships within the store.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're going to get into that a little bit in the conversation on that a little bit further.
Kevin, it's kind of interesting when you think about the size of a single case. We often will promote our ORC cases at big dollars to get more resources and to really highlight the problem. We often shy away and hide from large internal cases,
right?
Because you have that little bit of egg on your face because it was so sizable, right? How do we not catch it sooner?
Right. And I would even add to that. I mean, this is a plug that I shouldn't even say because it's embarrassing for me, but as an investigator, when I first came out of WZ training, thought I was a rock star because I caught a layaway associate who had gotten me for thousands. And I actually called Wayne to tell him, and man, did I hear it. And he said, why would you even call me with this? You should be ashamed of yourself. I mean, so it was a productive conversation, but that associate was hidden in the numbers because they were a seasonal associate, right?
Yep.
So I wasn't able to find them because they were seasonal. So to your point earlier, Kevin, it's a huge thing to focus on those seasonal associates. And I know we're going to talk about that later, but really pay attention to those seasonal associates that are coming through your building, or part-time associates even.
So I think what I'm hearing here is that it's not occurring any less than it was in the past. It's still a major problem. It's just that all the attention is on the ORC stuff, and that's obviously increased exponentially in recent years. But the internal side of things is as big of a problem as it's ever been. Is that fair?
Absolutely fair statement.
What's new? What's new in internal theft, right? I mean, we got all kinds of cool, flashy things going on to help us catch the bad guys, and license plate readers and carts that you push out the door that stop on the way out and they can't get them past. And, you know, you guys are working on all kinds of cool analytics and AI and stuff. What's new, Jake, on the internal side? Do we have anything, or is that why it's just not sexy?
Well, it was interesting when you asked me to do, or when Stephanie reached out and they're like, hey, you want to do a webinar on what's new and internal? I'm like, no. Because there's not much new, right? It's the same old stuff applied to new areas of your business. So when you think about internal theft, you got merch theft, you got cash theft, you got coupon abuse, you got return fraud, you got pass-offs or other collusion activities, you got theft from other employees, right, within the building. And that's what it's pretty much remained. I mean, I hope I didn't miss one, but those are the big ones that you deal with all of the time. I think when I talked to a couple of my peers in the industry to kind of test this out a little bit, and they kind of laughed at me the same way I kind of laughed. But it's in new areas. So when you think about BOPIS, right? Buy online, pick up in store, or BOPIS, depending on everybody pronounces it differently. That creates a new area of your business where merchandise is often going out the building outside of a checkout, right? It's paid for online, and then it is gathered and picked and packed or taken right out to a car. And team members have now figured out how to use vulnerabilities or absence in process there to slip other items into that order. So I know Julie, and Julie just placed an order and she paid for 5 items, but I know Julie, and so she's getting 10 items, or she's getting that brand new Xbox that she might want because I see her order, and there's maybe not a lot of controls on what's going out that opposite door because we assume it all to be paid for. And so that's one area. Probably another area is in self-checkout. So you think of the history in AP, you started out with single drawer accountability, the good old days, one person, one drawer. And then it went to lane accountability, 3 to 5 people per one drawer. So we know there's a loss. We know 5 people it could be. Well, now you got a SCO and there's no cashier. There are people that load it. There are people that unload it. There are people that have to access it if it jams. That's where they're going. And we've seen a lot of pressure there at the SCO where team members are kind of living in that new technology. There's, I don't know about everyone's SCO in the industry, but it's a new technology and there's balancing issues that are totally legit and not theft. But a team member quickly figures out how to hide in there and take money that is not going to balance out. There's not going to be an over for the short. And they can live in that way for a little while. And if you don't have strong processes, you can get caught up in it and it can go on for a little while.
Yeah,
And
it
let's make
seems
sure
like
we
there's a lot
clarify.
more.
Oh, Jack, I was going to say clarify SCO as self-checkout too.
Yeah, self-checkout, yes. Sorry.
Anyone who's listening and doesn't know the lingo. So
It would also seem like there's a lot more opportunity there for collusion going through the self-checkout lanes. Have you seen a lot of that?
I don't even know if it's collusion. It's more of helping yourself. And when I'm explaining things to cashiers, the attendant that stands there, you're now running 6 lanes instead of 1. And when you're running 6 lanes, how much time has that customer been trained to be their own cashier? None. And so you really have to pay attention to those customers because there could be some that don't even know what a UPC is. And our thieves like to hide in there. I don't know if it's necessarily collusion with they could look the other way, absolutely. But it's more or less a lot of loss because people don't know what they're doing and they're taking things by accident. But then there's those who live in it too. And they're doing it on purpose and trying to hide with those who did it by accident. And if I get caught, I just say it was by accident, just like everyone else.
Yeah, and I think
it's opened the door.
I was going to say too, Jake, I think that there's even trends on social media about how to get away with it at self-checkout, right? And how many people have went through a self-checkout and not paid. I mean, it's almost, there's comedy made about it, right? So those are some issues too, but even just the training part of it and the brand loyalty, right? If the associate doesn't have brand loyalty, that's where we're going to see those issues, right? So I think they're brand loyalty and high turnover rates, those are high, those are prime conditions for associates to generate shrink from abuse or poor training, and of course fraud, that they're either looking the other way when their friend is coming through the line like you referred to before, or similar situations.
Right. So as far as the self-checkout space, just to try and kind of abate some of those issues, I know that, I've seen several organizations recently put out audits and kind of do infrequent or frequent audits, especially if you can kind of send a secret shopper or somebody from a nearby store in to go kind of check out those specific self-checkout lanes, try and run through a specific set of processes and see if that cashier is paying attention or not paying attention. But I did want to take it back just a tiny bit. So you had asked what's new on internal theft, and I think Jake hit most of the nail on the head there by saying not really a whole lot is new, but some trends that actually we've been seeing a lot lately with our customer base is that some of our associates, or some of the associates we've seen, are starting to get a little bit smarter. So instead of putting all their eggs into one basket of only doing refunds, they're doing refunds and they're doing overrides and they're doing gift cards. So they're staying kind of like, let's say, under that radar, that they're not cherry picked to be the person to take a look at. So it's really kind of getting smarter about spreading out how they're stealing versus doing it all in one place. And then I had a couple of other comments on the advances of technology. You hit the BOPUS and the curbside, but also just some other areas that I would say specifically would be ship from store. So typically with warehouse fulfillment, you've got those checks and balances as the boxes are going in and out and being shipped. But from a store shipment, kind of ship from store perspective, there may not be that second person. Just like you said with the curbside pickup, I may know you and I may add a couple of extra things. Same thing with, for example, DoorDash. So any of those new, what I would consider customer convenience, making it easier for the customer to get the item, also allows our associates kind of more opportunity to be able to take advantage of the systems that we have. So that DoorDash, where it's merchant pick, not the person actually going and shopping and then checking out at the checkout. So I'd say in that space, kind of technology is a blessing and a curse, because it's allowing our employees to take advantage of the areas that we're trying to give more space for customer convenience.
You bring up a really good point, because that's what one of my peers said. Is just, it's not new, but we give sometimes the keys to the kingdom in the sake of customer convenience, right? So we'll give them a little bit of discretionary approval for couponing or discounts. We'll give them discretionary approval and access to cash out gift cards for whatever reason it might be within your organization. And as you give those opportunities, it comes with an opportunity for someone to abuse it as well. And that's what she was seeing mainly in her region.
I'm really curious, and only from a personal experience, over the past weekend when I was doing some shopping, I will leave the location name unnamed, I noticed that they've actually shifted back from doing self-checkouts to completely manning those lines. Has anybody else seen that in their specific area?
We have not yet. We've brought back baggers. So we're doing bagging for customers again. But we're still very much providing that service to a customer with self-checkout.
Let's talk about, stay on the technology and the system side of things. So in what ways do you guys think that technology, obviously, as you said, Julie, and well put, right? They're finding new ways, to do this, or even just ways to spread it out, right? Which means we have to be good at finding ways to see that and catch that, right? And we know that on the external side, there's been all these advancements in technologies. What do we think about advancements on the internal side? Where do you think we're seeing more of that?
Yeah,
Kathleen, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think there's a huge interest right now in omni-channel, of course. claims, appeasements. You had talked about before, Jake had talked about before, that if I know somebody, I'm going to put extra things in the packaging. The other side of it that we're seeing is folks are saying, yeah, I never received that shipment, even though they've received it, right? So we need to be able to track that for the retailer and be able to show them and help them to mitigate that real-time transaction risk mitigation. We're seeing a lot of interest in that too. And it all just points towards that success of the online market, right? So retailers focused on the growth of that as we came out of COVID or were during COVID. And now we're really seeing the processes and the leaks that are coming out of that. So a lot of focus around omni-channel, and to what Jake had said before about Boro or BOPUS and all those different things is what's really front of mind for retailers right now, for sure.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, I think the technology is getting better. And so I know Julie and Kathleen both work for technology companies that provide a lot of great services for us retailers. It's gotten better. So you can look at more. And Julie made the point earlier that some of these team members know to keep it under a certain threshold. So I'm only going to take so much in return fraud and so much in cash theft and so much in merch theft, so I don't hit any of those bells and whistles, because a lot of this is rules-based, right? Show me the people that do this the most of all of my other population. Where are those outliers, exceptions in the exception-based reporting world? But now, and I've experienced, I've actually seen both of your guys' solutions. What's really cool is more data is pumped into these platforms. And so now you can see a better picture of what that team member is doing throughout your entire building. And as we see labor and payroll get crunched or pressured, people are working in different parts of your building. They may be a BOPUS person today and a cashier tomorrow, and maybe they're stocking shelves the next day. And so as these exception-based reporting systems have the total picture of the store, that's really helpful. Another thing is they're pushing the data to you. So instead of the days when you had to go in and mine for it and spend hours of time, check this, try this, go into this, they're now sending you a picture of your employees and rating systems and weighted models and showing you where your biggest problems are and where you need to look and dig in a little bit further. I think camera coverage has gotten better. It's quite an investment, and it's mainly for other things. But as we put in these new cameras that have wider lenses, we see more areas that we couldn't see before. And so getting strategic about what kind of camera we're using in what area and what we can see and what we can't see. I think that's all been very good advancements in technology that has helped us, as well as I remember rolling out the old, I'm not that old, but I remember rolling out digital or actual paper across the floor, looking through transaction journals. And you just think about where we are now in my 23 now year career. I can now just search and do a control F and look through journal tape and find no sales. So we talk about the cashier that's taking things out of the SCO. They got to do something in that SCO to open the drawer to pull the money out. Well, now you can just look for every no sale and watch the video to find where that person is taking something. Even better yet, a lot of your newer EBR accompanies the video. So you just click the video icon, and here's the video, that goes with the transaction that you're looking for or looking at. So it has made our jobs a lot more efficient, and it has made us be able to look at a lot more in a lot less time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that you bring that up, and I think that we're now trying to stop fraud before it even happens, right? By identifying and aggregating those issues as the loss occurs, and using predictive analytics, like you referred to, for both sides of our business. And we are even experimenting right now with AI modeling that will mitigate that risk in real time, right? So to flag the associate at the register that says, hey, you hit a threshold, you might want to pay attention to what's going on there. We know that you've, not necessarily that bold, but really being able to apply those models and change that behavior in real time, as opposed to traditional EBR where you're going after it after and being reactive to it. Because again, that's come light years. My Cheryl Blake, who a lot of people know, she always said that we could have been millionaires had we figured out how to automatically roll up a journal tape, right? Because that's where we came from, right? And so I think that it's really important that the technology is going that direction. But to your point, yeah, predictive analytics is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. The more data that you have, the better. I think it also creates kind of this data lake of where to take a look at. So to your point, Kathleen, how can we actually stop it either in real time or near real time? And so it's not, it's being able to get information back to the cashier to say, hey, we've noticed this. So we've seen customers send over, especially if they have an employee email address with the company, send over notifications, hey, go view this policy violation, or even be able to send it straight to their LMS. So not only is it actually tracking that they've completed that training and reviewing the policy that they hit on, but it also then tracks back to their actual employee record, should you need to kind of roll that summary up in the future for HR.
So I think a question that a lot of folks have out there, this is more for Kathleen and Julie. As former practitioners, and you're looking at these solutions, how does the solution provider really go about leveraging your expertise, your experience in the field towards applying that information towards your solutions?
Julie, you can go. Yep.
I was going to say, I think I need a little bit more clarity on the specific question that you're asking.
Well, if when your company is looking to put these solutions together, do they consult you? Do they talk to you about some of the types of issues that are occurring in the stores? How is that information used within your company to help them provide a better solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So every single customer or company that we work with all have kind of, let's call it, different things that they look out for. By and large, it's going to be a lot of similar things, whether it's refunds or voids or overrides. But what we've started to actually suggest to our clients is, instead of looking for specific thresholds, which, I mean, back in the day when I was at Sally Beauty, it was really about how many times is a customer, is an employee hitting for refunds for X amount of time period for X amount of dollars per transaction. Instead of that, we're actually starting to see a moving target get put into place to where it's more who is outside of those norms. So yes, they are leveraging kind of our industry expertise for those of us that, and I'm sure just like Kathleen, being able to say, yes, this is kind of, let's call it industry best practice. But best practice, from what I've seen from the industry recently, is really, instead of doing a specific threshold, since those thresholds change, especially as we go into those holiday seasons, is looking for those patterns outside the norm. So that's typically what we're suggesting from an alert perspective, but 100%, they definitely leverage our expertise. Kathleen?
Yeah, and I would echo that too. And I think, just like with Julie, I think that the majority of our staff are former retail practitioners and in the loss prevention space. So I think that really helps us too. And we have a library, a risk library of things that we'll launch our incoming clients with, or even existing clients. The customer success model that we use, the solution expert model that we use, all of those things lend itself to being able to help the retailers launch from the very beginning and continuously throughout the process, right? So my role specifically is, I am kind of the quarterback of the retailer. So I stay with them, live and breathe everything that they're doing on a daily basis. And I'm ingrained in their organization from our perspective, right? So I know all of the different things that are going on with them, and we'll really work with them based on our customer book and what other retailers are doing. And we'll even connect them, obviously, just organically with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Same things.
Yep.
I think we hear that a lot now, right? We don't have, it's not the competitive thing anymore so much, right? We're all kind of
not siloed anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, you just don't have those silos. And quite frankly, I can tell you, the companies that aren't listening to their experts and aren't listening to their customers aren't around anymore, right? They're not around very long, right? So there's a reason why, certain companies thrive and certain companies dive, right? So and that's a big piece of it, is making sure that you're continuing the process to improve.
Yep. And there's a lot of crossover though out there, right? That's how Julie and I met. So there's a lot of crossover out there where retailers are using both of our products, right?
Yeah,
so
well, I was gonna say there's crossover just between you two, right? Because you integrate with each other, as well. It's like people are like, oh, well, we can't have this solution. Well, no, they actually work together. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit quick about training and getting message out, because this is the time of year where you've got this transient group. And what's the best way to get the word out to these folks? How do we get them on board with our AP strategy? How do we get them looking out for the bad guys? How do we keep them, let them know that they need to stay honest if they are thinking about doing something that maybe might be a little not so honest,
untoward?
Kathleen, you used to be director of training, and it still applies today, because I know that you help a lot of the companies that you work with in getting that message out. What's that process like this time of year?
Yeah, and I think it's really important in the fourth quarter, right? And as we go into holiday, but we are really focusing back on the associates and leveraging that technology to do it for you. An innovative way that we do that is through coaching. And what it does is it just improves the efficiencies at POS, right? And it reduces front end turnover, and then also decreases what we call sales reducing activities, KPIs or exceptions. And just by leveraging that technology to replace policies, it really assists the front end managers, LP, everybody in the organization, operations, to make those decisions for the associate, which is critical, like Julie was talking about before, right? You want to counsel those associates before they make those bad decisions. And if you get in front of that, especially from a seasonal perspective, that information spreads quick like wildfire, right? So if Jake gets caught at the register stealing $100 or passing off, or obviously not stealing 100, but if he got caught with high line voids, he may talk to Julie and say, hey, oh no, man, the front end manager just talked to me about this. If you're doing it, don't do it anymore, right? So it's that deterrence effect that we want to make sure that we get in front of, because turnover is at an all-time high right now. And if you can affect that ROI on hiring and not have to rehire that person, I think that that's huge.
Yeah, and just with how do you actually go about training them? I think, it all starts at onboarding. And I think the other day, as we were chatting through this, Jake had mentioned that they may even have, potentially a shorter version for those seasonal workers that are coming in. So really, it's how can you continue that training? And so I know that I've seen in the past signs and postings in employee areas really talking about it consistently in your daily stand-up meetings, or at shift change meetings. But really, it's all about building the relationship with those tenured employees, because good employees, they don't want to see other people steal. So if you build those relationships and you have easy access for them to be able to report, whether it's a QR code that's posted in the employee room or on table toppers or flyers and posters. I mean, if you give them access to report, those good employees will absolutely kind of share that information. And kind of going back to the beginning, when you try and balance ORC versus internal theft, the more that you have those eyes and ears willing to share that information with you, the easier it is to be able to kind of act in both places simultaneously.
Yeah,
Jake, you're in that world live every day, right? How are we getting that message out?
Yeah, if you're not making sure your training completion is close to 100% right now, you're doing yourself a disservice. Just like when you think about shoplifters, external shoplifters, the number one deterrence is great customer service and engagement. For team members, it's training and education and a quality new hire orientation. It doesn't just teach them what's expected and keep them on the right path, but it also creates that risk of being caught. And if you're talking about those things and even some of your tools, hey, we got cameras everywhere and we've got exception-based reporting system, and explaining to them what those things are, it creates a risk of being caught. And when you think about it, you opened up and you talked about, seasonal hires. We actually have kind of a double pressure this year. It's not just seasonal hires. We also are dealing with inflation.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with inflation and sharp increases in the cost of things and steady pay increases that aren't to the same sharp increases as the inflation, your team members get caught in hardship. And when they do, they've got a lot of different choices how they deal with that. And sometimes some of them steer towards internal theft. If you've got a quality new hire orientation, they've got training, they know what's expected, they believe in your company, you can often keep them off that bus. I think the other part is solid recognition programs. Build loyalty. It does work. Even if they say, I have no other choice other than steal, you might keep them out of stealing from you. They may go to the competitor up the street and do shoplifting versus internal theft at their place of employment. I know it's not a perfect science, but it does help you in your own location. And then I think that marketing campaign around see something, say something, and making sure they know what avenues to report things that they're seeing, and educating your leaders on warning signs. You know, people that frequently call off of work, that have money problems, they're often on the drawers that tend to be short. Bubbling those things up and knowing how to bubble them up are really some degrees of success. I love what Kathleen was talking about as well. Many of the solution providers are adding these coaching modules into the system, and we've done it with a few of our solution providers as well. So took a system that would catch items that are missed at self-checkout and applied them to a man lane, and you'll find the majority of those interventions that you're having there aren't terminating somebody for stealing, but rather coaching them how to better catch items. Sometimes they turn around to take a sensor tag off and they forget that they didn't scan it in yet, and they put it right in the bag. That's not intentional. But if we can educate them and get in front of them at the time that they make those mistakes, you can definitely reduce the amount of loss you have there.
And I think that's huge too, Jake, right? With brand loyalty, like we talked about earlier. And if they're loyal to you, and to Julie's point about your long-term associates that are loyal to you, if they see that brand loyalty, then I think that you're more apt to have that good behavior or the deterrence effect for sure. And that first interaction, it doesn't have to be a negative interaction. It could surely be, hey, I'm sure that you didn't mean to bag this item, but it was an honest mistake, but that lets them know that you're paying attention.
Well, and as y'all kind of mentioned before, when you hire somebody, if you're having to let someone go, then you're just having to rehire somebody and train that person. So the money, effort, and time spent on that, if you can just kind of catch it early, remind them, it could just be that kind of soft reminder they need to pay just a little bit more attention.
Yeah. I have one more too. Make sure your team is ready to conduct a quality interview. Because you want the whole story, you want all the loss. You don't want to go in and just take the case you have. There's always more. And if you do a quality interview and you stay to the standards of whoever used Wicklander, Zulowski, you're probably going to go in there and avoid liability, and you're going to get all of the facts of the case, not just what's in front of you.
And I think that goes back to leveraging your technology, because if you're leveraging your technology, let's say somebody reported one thing, but then you go back and you take a look at their cashier dashboard or their store dashboard to see how they're trending between other people, and you take that extra time, it absolutely will allow you to build that full case, so that, to your point, you're going in with the full picture, and then you can go back and report back to WZ saying, hey, I'm super excited about this case. I got X dollars and I'm positive I got everything.
You know, it's funny. I was going to say, give me your recommended best practices, but I think you guys just, for this time of year, I think you guys just listed them all out. Yeah. So you're one step ahead on that. Well done. All right. Any closing thoughts? What do we got preparing for the holidays? When we talk about the best practices, because Kathleen, I know you guys have something, some cool holiday tips coming out. Final thoughts. Yeah.
And it's
Kathleen, I'll start with you.
Yeah. It's internally, they laugh at me because I'm passionate about it, because it is such a high risk time of year, right? And I think that we've seen strong success over the course of years. I mean, through iterations of this company, I've been through a couple of acquisitions, and we've seen it be very successful if we release out holiday tips and tricks, right? So what to look out for, and don't bombard the retailers with everything at one time. Just piecemeal it and we're doing a 10-week series right now where we're just highlighting different sales reducing activities that could be happening in your environment. So things like look at your reiterating what we already talked about, but seasonal employees, key performance indicators, claims and appeasements, what to look for prior to Black Friday sales, and then post-holiday returns. And by increasing awareness with the retailers, we're providing different ways to mitigate that loss proactively for sure.
That's great. Julie?
I love that. So we are in the process of working to put together something. I know that the marketing team, when I asked them about that, they had said that they're working to put something out, not only to our internal ThinkLP community, but also on social media as well. But I love what Kathleen's team is doing, because that 10-week series it's one of those, let's work together, because it's not about us, it's about the retailers overall. So I love what you guys have already started.
Anything exciting happen at Meijers for the for the upcoming holidays, and as far as how you're getting your message out to your teams?
We're going to sell a lot of turkeys. I think we're so, I think it's important to remember, while this is game time for us and it's the most serious time of the year, it's also the most wonderful time of the year. And we have really, even today, before I started this conference call, we had all of our Aptal team in that supports the stores to remind them, don't forget to have a little fun this holiday season. Don't forget to make it special for people. Don't forget to think about your team members and what they've got going on outside of work. And that's really the culture here at Meijer. And it's really exciting to be a part of that. Yeah, we got a job to do, but we can also have fun while we're doing it.
That's great. And we got to look out for our families too, right? So
Yep.
Appreciating what the everyone's doing and what they're doing to pay attention with their, to help them take care of their families as well, is just, it's so important. Jack, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Well, a lot of the questions I was going to ask were already answered, so I think we're ahead of the game with that. So I think we've about got it covered.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Definitely appreciate everyone's time today. We're going to share screen again. Boy, I just love that.
That's cute.
I gotta get you
That's
guys
awesome. I love it.
Something I'm sure
I really do. I like that one better.
my family would appreciate that. That's for sure.
I'll get you a copy of that one for sure. Hey, thank you everybody for joining. I know we lost a couple people there at 3:30 because we went just a few minutes long, but everybody gets the link to this afterwards so that they can listen to it and catch up on anything that they missed. So starting out with thank you to our speakers, and Rochelle and Carla Joe. We appreciate you. Jake, Kathleen, and Julie, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you to our sponsors, Sensormatic and Genetech, to the LP Foundation. Again, don't forget, if you're LPC or LPQ qualified, that you make sure that you keep track of this webinar, because you've got 3 qualifying credits for your CEUs. There's that awesome QR code to help you subscribe to the magazine if you're not already subscribed. And last but not least, just to say thank you to everybody. We hope everybody stays safe, has a great, we've got some holiday fun coming up next week. We stayed away from all the masks and all the Halloween stuff, but I hope everybody has a very safe Halloween. And we've got just one more webinar coming up in the first week of December. I think it's December 7th. So we'll touch base with everybody before the holidays for sure. But in the meantime, with the holidays that are coming up, stay safe, have fun with your families. As Jake said, it's great to have to do a good job, but it's even better to make sure that you have fun doing it and that you're looking out for yourself and for your family. So thank you, everybody. Jack.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Halloween. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you soon.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.